I'm actually, both my wife and I, we train around the world, and we're sad that we're not in Nepal right now. It was actually really a high hope to be there, meeting all of you in person. So at least we get to meet virtually. And I just want to let you know, we're going to leave time for questions at the end. So I'm going to go through the presentation. You can put your questions in the chat. We'll take all the questions at the end. We'll leave about 10 minutes for question and answer. Looking forward to that part of the session. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Here we go. All right. So we're talking about leadership for the 21st century, right? Times are changing. The needs of leadership are changing. So we're going to go to explore, what does this really mean and how does it relate in a very intricate, in-depth way to Agile? Now, before we go into that, I want to tell you a bit about our organization. We upgrade the evolutionary capabilities of people and organizations to realize the extraordinary. So when you think about evolutionary capabilities, it's our ability to evolve as a person and as an organizational system on an ongoing basis. And what this takes is a shift of mindset and practices to enable new ways of working. So if we think about Agile, it's a new way of working, but there's a shift, an inner shift, and new practices needed to actually unlock these new ways of working. So I'm Michael Kesahot. I'm a certified enterprise coach. My original background's in artificial intelligence research. I started working as a software developer, architect. I've held management roles with organizations. And so I know what it's like, and then I moved on to work as a consultant trainer. So I know what it's like to get Agile working, both from in the trenches as an enabler and as a manager. So I have all these different perspectives. And what I realized is that Agile is not enough. I spent the last years looking very in depth at culture and leadership, working with organizations with culture and leadership to understand this is where we need to focus our attention to create environments where Agile can actually flourish. If you haven't read my book, this is actually from 2012. This is 8 years ago now, but a lot of people still read it to understand that Agile itself is a culture system. So there's a free download for that you can get from my website if you're interested. I've written other books, Emotional Science, I've co-authored with my co-trainer and wife, Audrey, to understand how our emotions play a role, how we can be a leader, and how we can even collaborate on an Agile team. Upcoming is this book, Leadership 3.14, that's the working title, which is really to understand everything I've learned in the last 8 years. How can we lead? How can we create organizations? How can we get the full benefits of agility? So that's coming up. So I hope to hear today to give you like a taste of what the essence of high performance leadership is and how that creates success with and through Agile. So let's start with Agile. Let's look at the stage, so to speak. We know that we live in a VUCA world and that organizations want business agility to survive, and not just to survive, but to thrive. And we know that this is sort of antiquated way of working, waterfall, and that Agile holds this promise of why don't we put people on teams, have them collaborate, learn together. Well, in order for teams to function in this new way, it's not just a matter of implementing SAFe or Scrum, it's a shift in mindset. Success with Agile requires a mindset shift. So it's essential for all of us as managers, as coaches, as Scrum Masters to understand, well, what is that mindset shift and where are we with our own mindset shift? So you may have heard this before, that doing Agile is not the same as being Agile, that practices are not the same as the mindset. We can do all the practices and we get proven benefits, usually about 20% benefit improvement of what's happening. So we can do the practices and those are valuable. However, this being Agile or the mindset, that's something very different. That's 3 times the level of benefit. It's people who show up with passion, who care deeply about the organization in creating extraordinary customer outcomes. That's something very different. So looking at just from this basic perspective, Agile, about doing versus being, we understand that most of the value comes from the mindset, from the beingness. Unfortunately, Agile increases tension and conflict in organizations. It's kind of like when we introduce Agile, we're trying to pull the organization one way, and there's all these other forces pulling the organization, holding it down to its current way of functioning. So unfortunately, when we introduce Agile, we can actually introduce conflict. And of course, nothing good will come of conflict. That only will be a destructive energy. Ken Schwaber, the founder of Scrum, one of the co-creators, said, Scrum is designed to disrupt the hierarchy. So if you're using any form of Agile, please understand that the intention behind it is to disrupt the hierarchy. That's why we see tension. That's why we see conflict. That's why we see misalignment. That's why we see kind of failed Agile or fragile or Scrum butt. So essentially, this is the recipe we're living right now with Agile. We have a hierarchy, we add in autonomous teams, and it's a nightmare. So some people say, well, just get rid of the hierarchy. It's so simple. Well, if the hierarchy is the problem, the hierarchy causes the suppression, let's get rid of the hierarchy. Well, let's look at that for a moment. The question is, are you and everyone around you ready for a network? It's actually a trap. People are not ready for this. You know, advocates are there saying that we need radical change, that we need to get rid of the hierarchy, we have self-managing teams. There are all these different things that we need to do to create high performance. And this also, I'll tell you, is a trap. It can work, of course, in very special circumstances, but for most of us, we do not have access to this. So when we get rid of the hierarchy, what it actually does is it impairs psychological safety, puts people into uncertainty, worry, fear. So if we can't get rid of the hierarchy because it's too scary, too damaging, what can we do? Well, if we think about a traditional management pyramid, top down, command and control, an easier step, a much more manageable step is to invert the pyramid where we have employees leading, managers and executives supporting. Well, the question here, if that's the easier step, that's much more manageable, are we even ready for that? What does it take to be ready for that? Are staff ready to lead? Are they showing up engaged, motivated, ready to take charge? And are managers ready to let go of command and control? Do they understand how to use their power for good and not for oppression? In most organizations that I've worked with around the world, the answers are no. Staff are not ready, managers are not ready. A fundamental rethink of Agile is needed so that leaders can be successful. Not a little change, not a little tweak, or let's just try to do this thing. No, 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 a fundamental rethink. So we're going to share part of that fundamental rethink with you. A key aspect of the rethink is that it's all about people. You may have heard of this concept with Agile, autonomous self-organizing teams. I'm going to give you our professional opinion of it. It is extremely toxic and damaging. Yeah, so you might be in shock. Like, what am I saying? It's extremely, this is hearsay. I should be burned at the Agile stake as a heretic, as an Agile heretic, not an Agile leader. But wait a second, just hear me out for a moment. What happens when you tell teams they're autonomous? Well, they'll think they're autonomous. And guess what will happen? They're eventually going to run up against the hierarchy and discover they're not autonomous, and all their psychological safety will be thrown out the window. The other thing that's going to happen is that if you tell teams they're autonomous, if you've got 7 teams in your organization and they all optimize locally, the global optimum will fall. So telling teams they're autonomous is actually a sub-optimization. And self-organizing, well, most teams don't have the level of responsibility to self-organize effectively. That there needs to be a lot of ownership, a lot of motivation. So some teams will be able to self-organize effectively, maybe 1 out of 7. The other one's kind of mixed, and some will just do a terrible job at it. So we want to allow teams to self-organize when they're ready for it. We want to give autonomy where it makes sense. So these are beautiful endpoints for the journey towards high performance. But it's not the starting place. The starting place, a better starting place, is interrelated, responsible teams. We want teams that are interrelated, that work together to optimize the whole of the organization. To get a responsible team, we want responsible teams, right? That take responsibility, do the right thing for themselves and the organization. Well, that takes responsible people. So really, the only way to create the outcome, the end, is to develop people's levels of responsibility, their individual level of responsibility. When you have a collective of responsible individuals, you'll get a collective of responsible teams. So we're suggesting that interrelated responsible teams is a much more powerful thing to focus on, and understand that autonomy and self-organization is this beautiful, beautiful star on the horizon. But that's the destination we're trying to get to, not the starting place. So here's what we do, is we keep the hierarchy. In fact, the largest case studies of Teal, these very high performance ways of working, actually have a hierarchy. It's kind of like this hidden secret that you don't need to get rid of the hierarchy. Instead, what you do is it's all about the people. It's all about evolving the people so they're responsible, so they have psychological safety, so that they cooperate with each other and collaborate, not just within teams, but across teams. That's what it takes to create high performance and business agility. And the model we have is no one gets left behind. We're speaking to Nepal, so this could be the climb to Mount Everest. It's about making sure that everyone is taken care of and supporting them with what they need on the journey. Ultimately, we can understand this whole journey is moving from theory X to theory Y. Theory X workers dislike work, avoid responsibility, and so on. Theory Y workers take an interest, they're passionate, they're excited, they take initiative, they're motivated. So the whole of this journey to create more responsible people is from theory X to theory Y. And most people are somewhere on this spectrum. So it's about helping them evolve less X, more Y every day at work. That's where the high performance will come from. Agile is simply essentially a means to help unlock and encourage people to show up as theory Y. So evolving people, whether it's through Agile or anything else, is the real goal. That's the only goal. If we think about another perspective, moving away from a fixed mindset where we're afraid of risk, we're afraid of feedback, we want to play it safe, where change is hard, to a growth mindset where we think, oh, I can learn. I'm excited about feedback because it's a chance to get better. So it's really about growth. It's about evolving people is the goal. Agile is about people. That's the core of what we're speaking of here. So let's now shift from evolving people to talking about leadership evolution. And think about, well, what role do leaders play in evolving people? When we look at the organizational system, it has a certain set of operating characteristics. So we can see that when we have these triangle-shaped people, we're going to get a triangle-shaped outcome, like this dark blue triangle. Well, what if you want a different outcome? You want to have an adaptive business agility, adaptable organization. That's the outcome you want. Well, you're going to need to have adaptable people on the inside at all levels of the hierarchy, because it's all about people. And the only way to go from your current state to a more adaptable future state is for people to grow. That's the journey. So organizational growth follows personal growth. If you want to have an organization that's growing and evolving, the only way that is possible is when people are growing and evolving. So the trap, and Agile is an expert at this trap of starting at the bottom. We start at the bottom, down here, with teams. And what happens? Well, you know, there's some little pockets. There's some little pockets of a new way of working, but the whole of the organization hasn't changed. So if you've been involved with Agile, you've probably seen that. Local agility on teams, little culture bubbles of things happening in a different way, but no change in the overall organizational system. Why is that? Well, it's because up here at the top, nothing's changed with the top leadership. There's still the same behaviors we had before. We see the same behaviors now. So the whole organizational system does not change. What it actually takes to create a change in an organizational system is this. When we start up here with the leaders, and the leaders go first, and they evolve themselves, their own behavior, their mindset, their consciousness, then they can lead the shift to a different organizational system. We can say that culture follows leadership. So to create a different kind of culture, to create a place where there's an agile mindset, an evolved way of working, that follows the leadership. There's no other way to do it. So we understand that it's about keeping the hierarchy, supporting leadership evolution to create a great outcome for everyone involved. Now, research shows 80% of executives and top organizational leaders worldwide understand that leadership is an important issue. And now here's the tragedy. Research shows that while organizations expect new leadership capabilities, the shift in behaviors, the shift in mindset, they are still largely promoting traditional models and mindsets. Leaders need something more than executive coaching. They need something more than standard leadership training. They need an integrated way of understanding how to show up and function as a new leader, and the shift in mindset, the shift in consciousness. They need the doing and the being. Now, when we look at the research, and this is the, again, from this Deloitte Global Human Capital Trends Survey, we see that key organizational challenges are with people. It's all about the people. Are people learning? What is the human experience or employee experience, like employee engagement and so on? And what's going on with leadership? How's leadership functioning? And when they identify key challenges, they say leaders need the ability to lead through complexity and ambiguity, to lead through influence. So what we see is a fundamental upgrade is needed. To lead through influence, it means that I need to understand as a leader how to navigate through the paradox of power, how to use my power for good, but not for destructive purposes. It's a totally different perspective of how I as a leader approach people and the organizational system. So what's required is a shift in doing and being. We talked about that with Agile. Agile is about doing Agile and being Agile. So similarly with leadership, there's a shift in what leaders do and how leaders be, their state of being. Our saying is that a new way of being enables a new way of working. That shifting mindset is key. That's what this whole game is about. That's what this whole journey of Agile is ultimately about. You know, Agile talks about collaboration, people over process, adapting to change. That requires a shift in mindset. Now, when we look at the tapestry of this whole journey, we can see that as we evolve people, as people shift in their consciousness, as they shift in their mindset, the engagement and the outcomes increase. So I'm sharing a model from a modified model from Frederick Laloux's book, Reinventing Organizations. I've written a lot about this on my website and blog if you want to go deeper. Essentially, as human beings on planet Earth, we've moved away from working through structures that are mostly focused on power and structure towards ones that are based on achievement. This is kind of the modern multinational corporation, to ones that are all about the people, on to very high performance organizations where there really is shared power and decentralized network, where people show up and act like adults, which is a very high requirement. Most organizations don't have that. A lot of organizations are filled, even all of us here, we don't always act like adults. And that's our growth work needed to do to create a truly high performance environment, a truly high performance organization. So when we look at this journey of evolution, of evolving people, of shifting consciousness, there's a dividing line. And on the one side, we have business as usual, traditional business. So if you're doing anything like traditional business, it's the very definition of low performance. On the other side of the equation, we have embracing complexity, people who are able to navigate and adapt to changes. And that's where business agility lives. So ultimately, Agile is attempting to help us evolve our organizational systems from low performance cultures and modes of operation to very different high performance ones. So where does shifting consciousness fit in this? So we saw on the graph, it's about the evolving people, about shifting consciousness. So when we think about what does this actually mean, shifting consciousness, well, it turns out Nepal is the birthplace of Lord Buddha, who founded the whole spiritual tradition of Buddhism, right? So we take a moment to realize this. Shifting consciousness is about this realization of the self, of this deeper understanding of the workings of a human being, and through that understand how to work with other human beings. We can call it the secret sauce of collaboration, which is what Agile is all about. How can someone collaborate on a team if their ego is getting in the way? If it's all about them, if it's all about them being right, there's no possible way. So without some progress of working through the ego, without some progress towards working towards becoming egoless, which is, we could understand what Buddhism is all about, but setting aside the ego and just being present as a human being, that's the journey. And we see this in all great leaders. So forget about spirituality or Buddhism for a moment. If we look at Mahatma Gandhi, a very, very powerful leader, right, who was able to lead not just what he did, but through his being. Nelson Mandela, another inspirational leader. To create great change, to create great outcomes, it requires a shift in our being. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "I have a dream," right, was able to inspire and motivated a massive change in the United States, breaking hundreds of years of tradition. These are all examples of great leadership. That's the kind of leadership it takes to create success. Now, some of you may say, well, geez, those guys are amazing. Like, I'm not like that. Well, here's the good news. Here's the good news, is that we can move in that direction. That's what it means for us to evolve ourselves with people. That's what it means to shift our consciousness. It's an evolutionary journey. Every step that we take to evolve ourselves, our inner being, enables and unlocks our capabilities. Our way of being touches everything we do, every interaction we have with everyone around us. So we're going to introduce a concept that Audrey and I have co-created called evolutionary leadership. The term's been around, and we're creating a different definition that takes you to a formula that will allow you to evolve in profound ways to create profound results. The core of evolution, if we think about it, is about finding balance and integration between the doing and the being. And when we have this integration, when we have this balance, that's what's needed to unlock ourselves and unlock others around us. So what is this doing and being? Well, if we come back to Agile, we see that Agile's got the doing and the being too. It's right there. It's front and center. You can't have success with the doing without the being. And they go hand in hand and they're intertwined. So we're just talking about the same concept from Agile, but applying it to a leadership perspective. So evolutionary leadership, we define the being as follows: the ongoing commitment to evolve one's consciousness to a more evolved state of being. Well, what does that mean? Well, think about it. What's a more evolved state of being? Calmer, more present, more able to listen to others, having one's ego in check, being curious. That's an evolved state of being. When we can show up in that state all the time, it's going to inspire and influence everyone around it. It's going to touch every single thing that we do. Mahatma Gandhi said this: "Be the change you want to see in the world." This is not an inspirational quote or poster to put on the wall. This is a daily prescription for evolutionary leaders, is to stop looking at all the problems with all the other people in the situation, but instead look internally, become aware of yourself, and how are you showing up? And how can you show up differently? Rumi said this is the truth of my story, how I came here. Yesterday, I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today, I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. That's what it means to be an evolutionary leader. And I don't know if you're ready for that, but it's a profound secret for unlocking high performance in yourself that allows you to unlock high performance all around you. Evolutionary leadership also has the doing. We define it as the ongoing commitment to understand and apply the laws of organizational dynamics to evolve people and organizational systems. So it means a very strong commitment to understand, how do things actually work? What are the laws of cause and effect? We can understand that, and this is what we go into in our trainings. We train thousands of leaders worldwide, but around understanding that culture, leadership, and organizational change are not three domains. They're one domain. We're just seeing them from different angles, and we need to have an integrated understanding of how they're all interconnected to unlock all three of them. To give you a sense of what this looks like is that there's a desire for business agility, and that comes through new ways of working, Agile, DevOps, and so on. And that will only flourish to the extent that there's a healthy organizational environment and culture. And that only can happen when there are leaders who are creating that. And when that can only happen when all of us are showing up as an evolutionary leader to create leaders around us. So to flip it around the other way, that when we show up as an evolutionary leader, the doing and the being, then we can create other leaders around us. And then collectively, we can create a healthy organizational environment and culture. And through that, we can have Agile and other new ways of working that will flourish. And that's what will give us our business agility. So when we understand the laws of organizational dynamics, we understand, well, oh my gosh, if I want to get business agility, I have to start with myself. There's no other logical place. So when we start putting this into practice, here's what it looks like. I'm going to give you some very practical tips you can use. There's something called the Hippo Effect, highest paid person's opinion. And the hippo is not bad, it's just subject to cognitive bias, or the hand of our ego causing us to think we're correct when we're not. And what this does is it shuts down the other people around us. He must be right. Better not say anything, right? And the way to overcome this, so I'm going to give you an inoculation you can use tomorrow to overcome the ego, to overcome the Hippo Effect, which is this. Listen first, speak second. This is a technology pioneered by the Canadian military, which is when you're the most senior person in the room, you say, hey, we're here to talk about subject X. I have some ideas, but I want to hear what everyone else has to say. And we'll just go around the table, or around, in this case, the Zoom call, and everyone can share. Because I really want to have everyone's input to get to the best decision possible. Together, we're all smarter than any one of us. And so when you as a leader frame that, and you create a space for list others, that's going to support people's levels of psychological safety and build the trust, build the connection. Right? I know the speaker before me was speaking about this. The other very practical thing that you can do is ask for permission. If you look inside this graphic, this yes is built of many, many, many no's. A lot of the time, actually, I'm gonna back up a bit here. If you're on this call, if you're listening to my voice right now, you probably like helping people. That is your greatest asset, and that is your greatest weakness. It's your asset because you're going to do the things needed to help the people in the organization. That's great. The problem is you're going to do something called over-helping. You're going to help people who do not want to be helped. And the way to counteract that is to ask permission. Questions like, would you like some help? Would you like some advice right now? And you're listening for the word yes. When you slow down, become present, and ask for permission, you'll find out you may not have as much permission as you thought you did. And you'll discover that you've been over-helping. And when you work through that aspect of your leadership, you're going to create a lot more results. Even the simple act of asking someone, would you like some advice? When they think about it and they say, oh yeah, I would like that, it puts them in receiving mode. So it's going to help them receive whatever gifts, whatever support you can give them. So it's a very powerful technology that you can use yourself to start getting better results immediately with everyone around you. It'll also work at home. The final piece I'll share here is about evolutionary leadership development. It's much more than meditation. It's about using daily practice as a way to shift your consciousness. It's about understanding that it's not just about going to some retreat and having some experience and, I went to Vipassana for 10 days, so, I'm evolved. No. It's about integrating your shift of consciousness into your daily work. So if you don't know about that, please check out our blog or some of our trainings. We go into exactly how to start doing that. And that's what it takes, daily practice, daily intention, whether it's meditation or other things, to create a shift. When we put a little bit of effort in every day, over time, we're going to see a big shift in how we show up as leaders. Not just what we do, our skills and practices, but our state of being. That's the most critical shift. When we have a shift in our inner being, when we feel psychologically safe, secure, calm, we can then fully help everyone around us. So I'm going to leave you with this quote from this movie.
You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
All I'm offering you is the truth, nothing more. I'm going to ask you a question. What if? What if you are the problem? And you are the solution. What if? Can you imagine how much you can create in your world when you come to this realization? So our question is, are you ready to lead yourself, people, your organization? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session. Thank you so much. So now we can do some question answers. So if you have any questions to Michael, then you can type in a chat or just unmute yourself and then start asking. We'll go for next 15 minutes or maybe 10 to 12 minutes. Yeah. Getting good feedbacks, so looking for questions.
Yeah, everyone, I'd really love to hear your questions. I don't know if you're allowed to unmute or you can ask it through the chat. Really love to hear your questions.
Yeah, people can unmute themselves, enable the setting.
Yeah, so any real problems you have, and talk about how that relates to what we're sharing here, because it all ties in. I'd be happy to help you see the connection.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, but I'm just leading a team of 300 people, but the problem is when I ask the people that, do you want to hear from me? Do you need some suggestion? They all shake their head positive. So then I start speaking, and after a few time, I realized that all of these are so fake. So I have to stop the statement and just sometimes live with it. So what you suggestion exactly to be here as a leader? What can I do from my perspective?
Right. So let's go to the tip I shared. about asking for permission. And remember that word yes? It was filled with the word no. When you asked your question, what were they really saying?
When I asked them, I really want to help them, but sometimes it's about acceptability. Some eyes says that they know much more than me, and it might be true, no doubt about it. But when I ask them, they directly say that they want to hear from me, but it's not true.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, I think they're getting a yes, even though, because they think that's what you want to hear.
Yes.
So
yes.
It might be the case that, like, the thing is, if they said no and you were totally okay with it, then they know it'd be okay to say no. So there might be something. So that's one possible place to look, is saying, hey, would you like some advice? And it's okay to say no, right? And just make sure that they know it's okay to do that. And when they actually experience that it's okay to not take your advice, then they'll feel safe. The other thing you can do is just to back up and say, hey, I think this is a problem. Or I know there's this thing going on. How big a problem is this? And listen to them. Say from 1 to 10, how big a problem is this? And if they all think it's like a 3 or a 4, and you think it's a 9, then you can have a conversation. Well, why do you think it's as important as you think it is? And then share your perspective and see if they reevaluate, because they may not even see the problem. So they're not ready to hear the advice or talk about solutions, right? So if you start understanding and stop coming from your worldview, but start coming from their worldview, what do they believe? What do they understand? What is motivating them? And start to listen more to what's going on with them to understand their context. What do they think they need to do to be successful? That's going to start to open up the conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I got it.
How did he step in?
And one point to add with that question, that is, as you shown the pyramid. So some people are very top of the pyramid. When the team member top of the pyramid ask question that do you need a solution from me, the lower section of the pyramid always say yes. And in my point of view, the problem lies between the hierarchy. What is your opinion about that?
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with hierarchy when leaders know how to use their power appropriately. Right? And this is where we said ask for permission. When you say, well, would you like some help? Or how's it going? How can I support you? Right? When we look after that, we start looking after helping people be successful and actually having real direct conversations when needed. That's going to unlock a lot. So I see there's another question here. It'd be great to understand your thoughts on coaching C-suite executives who have very command and control background. So change happens when people want to change, right? You can't change anyone else. You can only change yourself, right? So, I mean, we kind of know that, but we forget about that. So to work with an executive or a team member or anyone else in the organization, the starting place is about what's going on for them. What do they want for themselves? What does success look like for them? What motivates them and inspires them? Unless you know that, it's going to be really hard to reach the person and invite them into something different, right? So that's why listening is the starting place to discover what's going on with the person. So the actual key secret that we've seen around the world for change is that there's a desire for change. And really, I think a lot of the work we've been doing over the last few years is about really crafting a message that executives can hear and understand to help them understand the laws of organizational dynamics, to understand the link between business success and their behavior. And when they start to get that connection, oh, wait a second, to get the outcome over here, it requires me to change. That opens the possibility for change. And then there are many, many other factors, but there's a whole, that's what I'm saying, there's a whole journey of inviting leaders to a different way. But again, it starts with ourselves. Are we showing up fully theory why? Are we inviting people? right? Are we actually living the Agile mindset? Are we living from and being from an evolved consciousness? And the answer for most people in the Agile community is a flat no. I'd say maybe 90% of people espouse and want the Agile mindset, but haven't done the shift in consciousness to evolve to be able to fully realize it. Most of us are not able to adapt to change. When something doesn't go the way we like, we get really frustrated, we get upset, all sorts of things happen. Yeah, so just if anyone wants to kind of dive into this, just think about how frustrated are you with the hierarchy? How frustrated are you with executives? How frustrated are you with team members or other departments? That's where you're not showing up with an evolved mindset. Because if you have an evolved mindset, you're not frustrated with anyone. You're saying, oh, those people are doing those things over there. That's not very useful. Oh, I wonder how I could help them. I wonder how I could invite them in. But we're fully resourced. We're fully enabled. So that's why we say start with yourself, because you are the problem. You are, but you're not seeing it yet. When you see that you're the problem, you can fix the problem. Right now, you're trying to fix everything else out here, and it's not working, and you're frustrated. That's the starting place, is to look inward at yourself. So if you are getting frustrated, if you are getting into fear, if you do have anxiety, you do have worry, that's why you wrote this book, Emotional Science, is to help leaders get out of this emotional stuckness that's taking you out. The book itself is supporting a shift in consciousness because it's about becoming more aware of your own emotional state and working through that to have a more resourced state of being. Right? There's another question here. The company I'm working for doesn't want to embrace agile transformation. What can I, as a software engineer, do, or how to implement transformation such as culture? So it doesn't matter if you're an individual contributor. You can focus on your own behavior. What we've learned time and time and again, not just through Agile, Lean, other movements, is that when we show up differently, we inspire others to show up differently. When you start showing up differently as a team member, you're going to start inspiring and pulling out the other team members. Your boss and the other people around, when you notice you start showing up differently. We've seen this with people we've trained all over the world. When they start applying these principles, you know what happens? They get promoted. And then suddenly you're not a software developer anymore. Now you're the team leader, the manager. And then you have much more power. You can use your power for good to help pull the other people up. And because you're operating at a more evolved state of being, people will copy what you do. It's called leading by example. It's called walking the talk. When you walk the talk and lead by example as a manager, as a leader, people will automatically start copying you. So if you're a leader right now and you see people not doing what you expect them to do, the place to look is at yourself, because people will copy your behavior. So that's the place to start. Huh?
I said stop injecting Agile on people.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, obviously another one is just stop injecting Agile on people.
They don't want Agile. Don't give it.
Just ask people what they want. Help them be successful with whatever they want. And use Agile to help it be successful where it fits. But a lot of the problem is we're so attached to Agile, and this attachment to Agile, this one way of doing things, doesn't leave us open to other possibilities. Yeah, so there's a question here. How can we transition from being a mentor to another aspiring leader? How do you go about establishing that relationship? Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand the question. Maybe you can reword that. Being a mentor to another aspiring leader. Oh, yeah, so, okay, here, I think I get it. So if you want to mentor a leader, so if a leader's operating here, and you want to mentor a leader, you have to be operating at a higher level, right? So some people think, oh, I just need to take a coaching program and then I can coach a leader. That's kind of true, but mentoring requires something else. Mentoring, really helping other leaders, when we really want to help people, we need to model a new way of being. That's actually a transmission that flows from our way of being, which means the only way to help them is not by new skills, by evolving our consciousness, our mindset, our way of being. And then we can help mentor or pull the other leaders up. So that's what I'm saying. Starting with yourself is the starting place. The default, everyone here is normal. You have something called an ego. Or coming with your ego is something called cognitive bias, where you have illusionary superiority. All of us think we're smarter than we actually are. It's proven in psychology. We all think we're smarter than we actually are. We all think we do a better job than we do. And when we take away that illusionary superiority, we look at the truth of how we're showing up, and we look at that. That's what shifting consciousness is about. It's about looking at the truth of what's there. And when we look at that truth, that's what will unlock our personal growth. There's a whole technology on this. On our website, we have a blog post called the 4 A's Conscious Leadership Model, where you can really look at how you're showing up. And when you can overcome that cognitive bias, you can pierce through it. You have the courage, the desire to pierce through it. That's where profound growth comes. And then you can evolve yourself, and then you can pull up other leaders. Otherwise, there's no possible way. Taking a coaching program will not help you, because it's about your inner state of being. It's about evolving yourself. It's not about learning some powerful questions and this and that. I mean, that's helpful and useful, but it's much, much more than that. To create a green or teal culture system, a high-performance culture system, requires an evolved state of being and an understanding of the laws of organizational dynamics. So you know how to use the paradox of power. You know how to use your power for good and not for harm. And it's so unfortunate that many of us have learned how to oppress others with our power, because we've learned all these bad habits from all the parents and environment and education system and so on. So that there's a lot of work for us to do to fully live the Agile mindset, to live an evolved mindset, to shift our consciousness. And that's the work, because it's all about evolving people. And the people we have the most capability of evolving is ourselves. And this is the magic secret. When we evolve ourselves, then others will start evolving on their own automatically. It's effortless. We actually don't need to do anything.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I will end this session because we've already 3 minutes more away. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. So thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right, so what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna take a group picture and announce it as an end.
I'm here, Amit.
Yeah. I'll take a group picture. I'll take a screenshot. All right, if you're comfortable, please turn on your videos. If not, if you're comfortable, please turn on your videos. If not, it's cool. Okay, let me take my first shot. Okay. Second, third. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we are done for the day. I'd like to thank all our speakers, all our sponsors, all our volunteers and organizing committee for making but we're not done yet tomorrow. It's 14 hours. So that 13 hours. Okay, tomorrow. Thank you, Michael. Okay, tomorrow we'll meet at 9 o'clock, 9 a.m. in the morning of Nepal. That is exactly after almost 14 hours from now. We'll meet. So for all benefit of all the participants from outside Nepal, please make sure that you can check the timing accordingly. It's exactly 14 hours from now, almost 14 hours. So we're done for today. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for taking part in today's session so much actively and asking questions, interacting with our speakers. So tomorrow we'll meet at 9 o'clock. So now we'll end for today, but we can definitely stay for a while to have some chit chat and talk. and some informal sessions. If you want to ask something, if you have some feedbacks, please. Yeah, hi Amber. Thank you for taking the session. So Amber was in another room.
By the way, Amit, when are you going to, like share the recordings? Because like I see that the recordings are being done.
Yeah. So we are recording all the sessions. So we'll discuss with our speakers, and then we'll share once we get their feedback and their content.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. If you have any questions, then let us know, or we can meet tomorrow. So make sure that you check the website for the session details, because so many people were asking about the sessions. Make sure that you check it tomorrow. Tomorrow we have lightning talks and 2 parallel sessions. Then we have panel discussion as well. So tomorrow we'll start at 9 a.m. and end by 2 o'clock. So it's exactly 24 hours of session for us, with a break of night in between. So see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Okay, but again, we need to meet after the session, right? So normally when we have the conference, we meet, we go for some chill. So Amit, what's the plan for it?
So yeah, you all can grab a drink and come in the in this room, drink water, drink beer, drink coffee. That's all we can do now. Okay, let me end.